You know, there were 1,000 or 2,000, it's estimated, radical street theater troupes in the 60s, and almost all of them are gone. There's just a couple left. Bread and Puppet, San Francisco Mime Troupe, El Teatro Campesino, and one or two others. Living Theater still exists.
Living Theater was one of the first of the off-Broadway theater companies and started one of the originators of the off-Broadway theater movement in New York City, starting in 1947. The true aim of the theater is to awaken the spectator to the fact of the violence that lies beneath the surface of civilization and of our more primitives and our own more primitive instincts.
We did a performance in conjunction with the surveillance camera players because Times Square is highly surveilled. And so they did one of their quick blitzes, 5 minutes, and you know, they usually have big placards, you know, they hold up so that the people, you know, looking at the camera, they can read what's going on, that sort of thing. And they kind of did an introduction for us, and then we performed Not in My Name after their piece. Maybe 8-9 months ago, we sat down in a meeting and we said, what's the new play? And people were very pissed off about the war. Everybody said, we have to do something about the war. And we had been working in Times Square for 10 years, and somebody said, well, you know, there's the military recruitment booth in Times Square, and on top of it is a giant TV screen. And this TV screen shows a 7-minute commercial for recruiting for the military in a constant loop. And of course, it's all, you know, hip-hop, video game culture, selling, you know, join the military, and it's like, you know, 2-second jump cuts, and it's really highly produced. And we sat down and we broke it down into each moment, and we created a play to perform in front of their commercial. And it's called No Sir. And it begins with the company of actors sort of standing in a military formation, but they're moving like zombies, and they're calling, come to your death. Come to your death.
Sir! No, sir! Make history! Stop the war! 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 For honor! Stop the war! Stop the war! Stop the war! For courage! Stop the war! Stop the war! They simply volunteer. They simply volunteer. They simply volunteer.
Anarchy is actually a Greek word, and it means non-hierarchical. And so if you look at our government structure, we have a guy on top, and then we have a bunch of guys just below him, and then we have a huge group of people that enforce whatever it is they decide, and then we have the rest of us underneath who receive what comes down from on high. So this is a hierarchical structure. We're very interested in non-hierarchical structures.
We have had lots of contact with a lot of people whose lives were changed from exposure to work like the Bread and Puppet and work like the Living Theater.
I remember clearly in these early parades, when we made big parades in New York City, when we lived here. We lived 9 years in the city, 61 through 70. And I brought the big puppets out into the street, and people were so happy to participate, to not do leafleting. You know, that was the alternative, to do leafleting or to carry a stupid or intelligent sign for hours and hours, and instead to be in a puppet and to continuously perform even gruesome things, like being killed and getting up again, and being wounded and getting up again, such themes. And yet it was like being active or passive, Just to carry a sign with a little slogan on it is so passive, it's so little. Whereas to be part of a monstrous airplane or part of a group of villagers who get destroyed and then they fight the destruction, and so it's so much more, so much bigger. I think the main ingredient of the shows isn't so much story or line of thought even, but is this warm material, the paints, the forms, the faces, the animals, and the sounds. When lots of neighbors come together and they work all summer long and they give a hand for this and that, and somebody who's good with wood works with wood, and somebody who knows how to sew sews, and lots of people collect materials and bring materials, and all of that falls into place eventually. So it wouldn't be easy to totally define it as political theater, because it isn't so single-minded. The masks come from when you sit on the subway and you look around yourself. People don't talk their lives, but they show their lives in their faces in a way. Once a mask is done, it exists as a face. It's serious. It's a serious, real human. Whereas an actor always fakes and assumes an imagined personality's life and so forth. They cannot possibly match this seriousness. We used to be a very, very big company. We used to travel in the late 60s in Europe as a company of 40, 50, up to 75 people. We couldn't possibly afford that anymore, So now we travel very small, 4 people, sometimes just 2, 6, at most 7. But our sculpture, our puppetry is large, and we want to be including. We don't want to come with a foreign product or with a cultural export. I want to meet the folks that want to do this kind of work and dance with them and do performing with them.